Now it's time for Spot on Sports. Here's your host, Mike Trezza.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spot on Sports, New York's premier sports podcast where we talk sports, all sports, and nothing but sports. Heavy emphasis on NFL draft tonight, hockey, baseball, the Knicks. We've got all of it tonight. Before we do any of that, let me say hello to my co-host, the man we call the coach, Mike Guidone.
Trez, so good to be back. It seems like it's been too long.
Much too long. And there's so much happening. So many New York teams going really well right now. We have to dig into all that tonight. We got to dig into the NFL draft, Giants and Jets. So let's get right into it, Mike. Let's start with your favorite team and mine, the New York Giants. Trader Dave, has a new reputation as being a guy who's willing to cut deals on draft day. Giants were originally number 11 in the draft. He traded with the Bears. He traded down to number 20. They ended up with the receiver, Kadarius Toney.
I think anytime you can get at least someone that's on your first-round draft board and pick up, like you said, a first and a fourth next year from Chicago and an extra fifth this year, which they actually used later on in the draft. I mean, that's fantastic. In the 11th spot, were we hoping for Devontae Smith? Of course. I mean, absolutely. But pretty unlikely. Jalen Waddle, he went early as well. So I think once Smith goes off the board at 10, I'm sure they had this trade queued up with Chicago. And as soon as they weren't going to get him at 11, the next guy on their board, Toney, they got him at 20 and added a first-round pick. I mean, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, if you look at the bigger picture and you're looking at it long-term, yes, it is going to help them add talent next year, and supposedly it's a better draft next year. Now, if you skip down to their second pick, Azeez Ojulari.
That's a great name.
Yeah, Ojulari. I might have to sing the Volari song. Linebacker out of Georgia. But importantly, Mike, for the Giants' pass rush, for the Giants' defense in terms of need, he's an outside pass rusher.
Yeah, you know what? He was projected quite often in a lot of drafts as a first-round talent, but, worrisome knee. But he's only 20 years old. He was Dr. James Andrews, who is the guy, the guru of anything ligaments. Checked him out right before the draft, gave him a full, clean bill of health. So I'm thrilled getting this guy at 50 that way and filling a huge need that they absolutely had.
Yeah, number 50 overall from the University of Miami. We'll go to the third round, and here's where Trader Dave started working on the defensive backfield a little bit, which you and I have talked before on previous shows, has been really an area where the Giants need. Huge. I mean, they brought in James Bradbury last offseason. He worked out great. And now, round 3, they get from University of Central Florida, cornerback by the name of Aaron Robinson, pick number 71 overall from the Denver Broncos.
So they trade up 5 spots using that 5th rounder that they had acquired from Chicago for a guy who runs a 4.38 40. Is he on the tongue of every draft person? I saw, in terms of cornerback rankings, he's up there. And like I said, it's a huge need. So anytime we can get someone third round with that kind of speed and move up a couple of spots to get using an extra pick that was acquired, I'm a happy guy.
4th round, Dave Gettleman goes back to defense again. Ellerson Smith, a linebacker out of Northern Iowa with pick number 116 overall.
6'6", 252, huge body. What you want, There's so many hybrid defenders, and I think we're going to talk more about that when we get to the Jets, how there were some linebackers who are now going to come in as cornerbacks and safeties. But this is a guy, big time, 6'6" guy who's going to plug that.
And Gary Brightwell in the 6th round, a running back out of Arizona, obviously just there for depth. They're counting on Saquon Barkley coming back this year, healthy, and being able to help out Daniel Jones. So you look at some of the weapons, Mike, that the Giants now have on offense. Your man, Kenny Golladay.
Oh, yeah.
They still have Shepard. They still have
Slayton.
Who he seems to have the best rapport with Daniel Jones of any of them. And you brought in the tight end from Minnesota in the offseason. You still have Ingram. So it looks like Dave Gettleman is trying to give Daniel Jones the weapons around him that a lot of people felt he's been lacking for a couple of years now.
Absolutely. You know what Tony gives you too, Trez, is that you have a playmaker who you can put all over the field on offense, special teams, do all sorts of stuff like that. He's been compared to Percy Harvin. It's an easy thing to compare him to because Harvin was out of the University of Florida as well. But anytime we're talking playmakers and excitement on a Giants offense, adding, in a first round somewhat late and adding another pick out of Chicago, again, Dave Gettleman, much maligned before this draft about his lack of trading. He didn't go crazy, but you know what? I'm happy with him. He's making some moves, and I think he just made the team so much better.
And bigger picture, I mean, we all know this is a make-or-break year for Daniel Jones. If you want to make a comparison with the Jets, Sam Darnold had 3 years. They didn't put nearly the weapons around him that not only are they putting around their new quarterback, but now that the Giants have with Daniel Jones. So no more excuses for Daniel. If he doesn't get the job done this year, you've got to start all over again.
And that's a tough place to start, boy. As a Giant fan again, and all of us, you really hope that that's not the case because it's just such a troubling thing to have to revamp your entire offense and who you're bringing in. Are you bringing in a stopgap guy? To burn a first rounder a couple of years ago and then have to do it again. Boy, I think he has the goods. It certainly looks like it, and we're going to hope for the best.
A lot of people were concerned, Mike, that Gettleman didn't take either a bona fide defensive lineman or an offensive lineman, and then he went out and signed a couple free agent offensive linemen. Were you concerned with that?
Not necessarily. No matter if you're bringing them in as a free agent or you're drafting, you still have to build continuity in those spots. You really do. So it's, if they're feeling comfortable, there's nowhere to go but up. That offense was 31st in the league last year. So Jason Garrett's got some work to do as our offensive coordinator.
If you look at a couple of the free agents, they signed Jake Burton, an offensive lineman out of UCLA. Out of University of Florida, they got Brett Hagee, who was a 3-year starter, 6'4", 310. So, again, he is going a little bit lower in terms of trying to bring in extra depth on that offensive line. I think he liked what he saw the second half of the season. What did you think of what you saw from the Giant offensive line down the stretch last season?
Well, that word continuity, again, I think it takes time. And when we're adding a lot of pieces or, a new system coming in with a Jason Garrett, new schemes, it just takes a little bit. But, yeah, definitely an improvement over those last couple of games for the entire offense. And everybody just looked ready to flourish. So we're hoping going into this offseason now with these new weapons, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah. So we started with the Giants. We're going to transition over to the Jets. And helping us break down the Jets draft day is our Jet Islander reporter, John Santamaria. John, are you there with us?
There he is.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
All right,
What's
John.
up, Johnny?
I love the look with the Jet logo in back of you. So let's talk about Zach Wilson, number 2 overall. Is that where you feel the Jets should have gone with that second overall pick?
Well, when you saw how everything was being unfolded in the offseason, you kind of knew it was going to happen. And for the simple reason of the fact that you look at the team that the Giants did trade with, the Chicago Bears, and I compare the situation that they just dealt with Mitchell Trubisky and the idea of, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option and he became a free agent. I don't think Joe Douglas wanted to be in that spot with Sam Darnold. He felt this was the right time to start over.
In choosing Zach Wilson, again, his name came up so much, John, over pre-draft, but really when he had his pro day, that's when the buzz just blew up. You could see the mobility, and then it was more about the power arm. As someone who's watched football for quite a while, I'm certainly no football expert, but watching guys on tape, on film, and what they do, that to me always seemed to be the real impetus for drafting. Now, if a guy has an amazing pro day in a pair of shorts and a T-shirt, it's still that seems now to be almost the thing that puts guys over the top. So I guess what you're putting on film during your season is super important, obviously. But if you come out and just blow guys away, that can put you up. Zach Wilson, one big year only at BYU.
And it also wasn't your traditional pro day because of the pandemic. You couldn't do things you wanted to do. So Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur had to have liked something.
Yeah, it must have been because you know what? Again, you're talking about a 6'2", 6'3". He's slight, but does he have an arm and his mobility. And I guess the one great season, like we had talked about at BYU was enough.
And I think the one thing that the key word you keep mentioning is the word mobility. And that word is very important for the scheme that they're going to be bringing in. The LaFleur family offense, as you want to start calling it, coming through Kyle Shanahan. Heavy emphasis on the run game. Heavy emphasis on quarterback mobility. We're not going to talk about what the Packers have done because they have a proven veteran in Aaron Rodgers who has won. He's changed his game up a little bit. But one thing that I've learned watching that kind of offense is they keep it simple.
Let's talk about the two guys, John, that the Jets got in the second round. They've got the player Elijah Vera Tucker, a left guard. They're going to pair him with Mekhi Becton on the left side of that offensive line. And then they went for a receiver later on in the second round, Elijah Moore, wide receiver from Ole Miss, supposedly played a lot in the slot. What do you know about those two guys?
Let's start with Tucker. First off, the Jets traded up 9 spots to number 14 in order to get that pick. They had to trade both of their third-round picks to do that, and I was surprised that even happened. But even thinking about it, Joe Douglas loves the offensive lineman. He loves to build his team through the front, and he saw an opportunity. It didn't cost him a whole lot. So it was something that I guess had to be done because looking at what was coming in the draft there, you knew Minnesota possibly could have took him, even though they traded out of the pick. Arizona could always use linemen protecting Kyler Murray. It's very hard to pass up on an offensive lineman. And if they thought highly of him, and one thing, too, I think you should also thank the Seattle Seahawks for being one and done in the playoffs because this made this trade possible because that was the pick for Jamal Adams.
Here's a great stat, John, on Elijah Vera Tucker. 561 pass blocks over his career, 1 pressure. The guy did not allow a sack, 1 pressure in 561 pass blocks at USC. And, again, stats can be deceiving, but I'm a big stats guy, and I love that number, 561 with 1 pressure.
I think that says a lot now, too, for another reason. So USC introduced the air raid offense, the one that started down at Texas Tech with Cliff Kingsbury, the one that's being run in Arizona. And you need quick motion, quick movement out of the ball when you're the quarterback. So you need strong offensive line play in that system. And that says a lot right there.
One of the things that's been missing, John, from the offense in terms of the ability to be dynamic is a dynamic player at the running back spot. Joe Douglas addressed that in the 4th round when he went after Michael Carter from North Carolina. Supposedly not just a good running back, a good blocker and a good pass catcher out of the backfield. Any thoughts on him?
And I think that fits perfectly with what the Jets want to do, what Robert Saleh wants to do. Look at the 49ers. They've had running backs up and down the depth chart succeed. And I am honestly one of the biggest fans of Mac Brown, the head coach at North Carolina. He gets his guys ready for the NFL. This is a great pick. This is a great addition to the team. And as is the other pick, Moore, too, when you bring him up, Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, another guy coming out of a pro-style offense playing for Lane Kiffin this past season. So a lot of familiarity with the NFL. So you're coming from programs where they get their guys ready for the next level.
And then, John, just to finish up quickly with the Jets, the remaining picks, 3 fifth-rounders, Sherwood, a linebacker, Michael Carter II, in case they were confused about which one they got, defensive back out of Duke. Pinnock, another cornerback out of Pitt. And then we're going linebacker Hassan Nazarildin, Brandon Eccles, and Jonathan Marshall. So they're stocking up on the defense. Nobody, I guess, really sticks out. But again, you can't have enough guys in the defensive backfield, which I think is a great move. Just coming back one last time. First time since 1983, the New York Jets have gone 4 offensive players in a row. So big with that. And then, when you're getting 10 guys in the draft, I guess we can be happy with that. So as a Jet fan, as a Jet expert, I'm guessing you're happy with full offense, full defense in this kind of draft.
Yeah, and I think the last 2 drafts under Joe Douglas went heavy emphasis on offense, which this team had to. But now looking at the defensive picks, these are just guys you're going to bring in that they're going to teach how to play at the next level. And if maybe you get 3 of those 5 to succeed, then that's your job well done. Because these are 4, 5, 6, 7 rounders. You don't have high expectations for those coming in. These are the guys who are going to compete for spots on the roster in training camp. And this will say a lot about the coaching. And this is what you eventually want to build. You want to find those steals mid-round that nobody knows about.
So, John, now as we transition to the Islanders, is this New York Islander team, is this the team that shut out the Rangers and looked absolutely unbeatable? Or is this the team that last night threw up a clunker against the Buffalo Sabres?
I still think it's the team that we saw against the Rangers. I think it's still the team that can play consistently. I feel like that they weren't completely focused to play last night. They should have possibly done the reverse. I think it's Sorokin in net tonight. I would have gone Sorokin last night, Varlamov tonight, but it is what it is. You just got to hope at this point in time you live and learn, finish strong. Right now, as high a seed as you can, and hope for the best come the playoffs.
Yeah, so let's take a look at the stretch coming up for the Islanders, John. They're home against the Devils on Thursday and on Saturday. They're at Buffalo again tonight, and then they're home to the Devils Thursday and Saturday, as I mentioned. And then the only playoff team that they finish against is on the 10th, Monday the 10th. They're going to be up in Boston. So do the Giants really need, do the Islanders really need to make hay over these next couple games and push that point total up a little bit before they get to that season finale against the Bruins?
Absolutely. And for 2 reasons. One, you still have a shot. It's an outside shot at home ice in the first round. Number 2, the Bruins still have some makeup games because they got hit with COVID in the early part of the season. So the Bruins could ultimately dictate the standings the rest of the way.
Yeah, and the thing is, John, is that if you drop to number 4, you're most likely going to be playing against the Penguins. And as you mentioned to us on an earlier show, the Penguins have given the Islanders a really hard time. I think the Islanders have only won 2 games against them all season long.
Whether it's the Penguins or the Capitals, the Islanders had a very hard time with both of them this year. But one thing that is so true with this team, since Trotz got here, the Islanders saw both of those teams the last 2 years. They had their number. And Pittsburgh and Washington coming into the playoffs this year have a lot to prove because of very disappointing finishes in their own prospective playoff series. Whether it's what the Islanders did to Pittsburgh a couple of years ago, what Washington did to Washington in the bubble, or Pittsburgh no showing in the bubble last year. So there's more pressure on those teams. Let's see what happens when it's a fresh slate and a fresh series.
You know, John, something that's come up recently, COVID related, is that it seems like we're going to get a few more fans in the building here for the playoffs. Hopefully we get that home ice, as you were mentioning, back to the barn for this last year before we move on to Belmont Park. So I'm guessing and I'm hoping that even more fans in this building, no matter who it is, and if we get up to 33%, whatever it's going to be deemed, is going to be a big help as well. So as you mentioned, trying to finish out strong here with that outside chance for the home ice, or even if it's just to feel better in the Collie as we get deeper into the playoffs. I think getting past that first round with a little more juice and we get some more fans in the building, then we take a little bit of a deep breath. But I'm holding my breath on this first round.
Yeah, we'll see. And obviously, they said they were going to go to 25% in the city area later this month. So we'll see if they hold to it. And obviously, Long Island, different, and that building is a whole different situation compared to the Garden Barclays as far as capacity. But we'll see what happens. Anything is possible right now. More people hopefully going to get vaccinated. Numbers are going up, and we'll just take it day by day.
So we know the 4 teams, John. We know it's Pittsburgh. We know it's Washington. We know it's the Islanders and
Boston Bruins.
And Boston. We just don't know in what order yet. See if you can give me a very definitive, short answer on this. Boston, Washington, Penguins. Which is the best matchup in the first round for the New York Islanders?
Despite the way they've played this year against them, I still think the Islanders match up the best with the Capitals.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Capitals are a big team, man. They gave you guys a hard time in the playoffs last year.
The Islanders beat them. It took 5 games. The Capitals struggled with the Islanders, but the one thing you got to remember, too, is Barry Trotz used to be the head coach of the Capitals. He knows that roster very well, and he'll figure out ways to beat them. And one thing the Capitals don't have this year is the experience in goal, and that could hurt them come playoff time.
Really great job, John. Thanks very much for joining us for a few minutes. It's always a pleasure. We'll talk to you in probably 2 weeks, and by that time, the Islanders will already be knee-deep in a playoff series. So I'm looking forward to speaking with you then.
Thanks a lot, Johnny.
A lot to be excited about, and we'll see where things unfold come May 10th and where all the seating is.
Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. All right, Mike, anything to add about the Jets draft, or did we get to as much of it as you wanted to cover?
I think we're good with the Jets. The only thing I'll say is this, is that when you get rid of a Sam Darnold and salary cap and fifth-year options, I know there was a lot to think of there, and go with a Zach Wilson, you better be right. That's it. Now, with this new regime, it's the first time as someone who follows the Jets, I'm not a Jets fan, but – and I think any Jet fan would agree. You feel that there's some trust in this group. Finally, there's some juice. There's some excitement. So if they feel comfortable with Zach Wilson, God bless him. And when you're bringing in the first round again, a starting guard, starting wide receiver you're going to bring in here in the second round, and a great backup running back who is a scheme back, along with 5 or 6 defensive guys, you're loaded. And you even said this draft is not as great as next year, apparently.
Absolutely. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and get to the subject you really want to get to. Mike Guidone is absolutely
I'm chomping
at the bit to get into the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, Mike, absolutely. And you know what? Listen, there's no way I can not say this. I would be an absolute fraud not to be able to say this. The hottest team in the NBA right now, and as you mentioned several times throughout this regular season, who would have thought it? Right now, 37-28, sitting in that number 4 spot for the playoffs, ready to take that home court advantage in the first round. What's been your impression of what the Knicks have done lately?
Well, gosh, 2-3 shows ago for us, we won't even say weeks, but let's say 2-3 shows ago, we were talking about what would be a successful year for the Knicks? Would it be making the playoffs? Just squeaking out of that play-in scenario? Boy, have they blown up those theories tremendously. I have to admit as well, and I would be a tremendous fraud. When they brought in Derrick Rose, I was one unhappy guy.
I remember that.
Very.
I don't want to remind you, but I remember that.
Come on, babe. Listen, I got to do it. And he has exceeded expectations.
He was great last night, too.
Boy. And he's been talking recently about that his minutes, they're kind of capping his minutes, 2022. He feels good to go for even more.
Absolutely.
Based on just how his game has changed.
11 of their last 12. Now is when the West Coast trip gets harder. They beat Memphis last night. Great job by the Knicks last night. But now, not only do they have to go out to the West Coast to some very, very tough teams, but all of these teams are fighting for something right now. So the Knicks are not going to have a cakewalk, Mike. If you look at the next 3-4 games, they've got Denver Wednesday night. Then they go to Phoenix. Phoenix is motivated to get that top seed overall. I mean, can I even believe that I'm saying that right now?
Amazing transformation. I mean, they came from nowhere in the bubble last year to they didn't lose a game and kept the momentum going. Chris Paul, I wasn't a huge fan of that move, but boy, now there's Chris Paul conversation for MVP.
Absolutely. Right after that, the Knicks go out on Sunday, the 9th, to the Clippers. The Clippers are in the exact same spot. A little bit better record, but the exact same spot as the Knicks are in. They're in that number 4 spot in the West, and they're looking to hold on to home court advantage in that first round.
Only thing about the Clippers, no matter what the scene is for them, they're resting a guy or two. It seems to Phoenix and Denver right now, they can't afford to rest guys. They're going. So the Clippers, I don't think, do they have a shot a little bit up, a little bit far? So that game on paper scares me. But I think that's going to be the one where they might sneak that one out and might be one of the easier games. And then I know they're following up with the Lakers after that, and who knows?
Lakers Tuesday the 11th, and the Lakers, am I really going to say this, Mike, are trying to avoid play-in scenario. I mean,
it makes my heart warm because when I'm hearing LeBron James complaining about the person who came up with this year should be fired. Last year, he's on record as saying any kind of play-in games were great. A nervous LeBron is a great LeBron to me.
Absolutely. And after that, they finish up on Thursday, May 13th, with the Spurs. The Spurs are barely hanging on to that number 10 spot, one of those play-in scenarios, so they're going to be super motivated. Certainly not a great Spurs team this year, but again, if it's a choice between number 10 and you have to play 2 play-in games and number 11 and you pack up the stuff for the season, they're going to be motivated. And you know Popovich, I still put him up there. I don't put anybody ahead of Popovich.
No, and rightly so because he's taking over the Olympic team this summer, and for good reason. I mean, Mike Krzyzewski, again, you know how I feel about him. I've spoken as just a basketball mind is unbelievable. Pop. Guys love him. NBA guys love him. Should be seamless into this Olympics. But yeah, he's not going to throw it in because he's going to prove once and for all that no matter who he has, he's bringing them to the playoffs.
No Tim Duncan, no this guy, no that guy, no Ginobili, these other guys.
Guys want to leave, DeMar DeRozan. Yeah, I mean, it's one after the other, and he just keeps churning out playoff teams.
But you know what? I have to come back and say I was on this guy a little bit earlier in the season. I was telling you I was a little unhappy with R.J. Barrett. I said his shooting percentage has to get better. It has. I said his three-point percentage has to get better. It has. He's finally reaching that elusive 40% mark from the three-point, and he's had some big shots down this. So R.J. is picking it up. I want to look forward to the playoffs, though, with you, Mike. If the New York Knicks do get in that 4-5 matchup and are able to get home court in that first round, who is the team that's still alive in the East that you, as Tom Thibodeau right now, want to avoid?
Wow, want to avoid? That's a great question. I mean, I thought you were going to ask me who I'd like to see, and I'd certainly like to see the Hawks. That's for sure. Because
I'm not going to let you off the hook.
No. Boy, I don't know. Did you see the Pacers score the other night?
No, I didn't.
154 points they put up. So, that's a team that can put up huge numbers.
Karis LeVert.
That's an intriguing matchup as well. The Pacers, I think, would be the team if they can get into that 5 spot that I think the Knicks would. I think they'll still handle them because of their defense, but they're just a little bit more experienced and a little more comfortable at this point. The Hawks have played super well since Nate McMillan took over. Got to give him credit for that. I'm not a big, huge fan of in-season firings, but boy, has he been the coach of the year, almost bringing them from the brink, even with injuries to Trae Young now, to a solid, right there, number 5 team. Tibbs, I'm going to say the Pacers.
All right, the team I actually, if I'm a Knicks fan, or certainly if I'm the Knicks staff, the team I really don't want to play in the first round, the Miami Heat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think they've underachieved all season long, Mike, and it's very, very difficult to turn it on come playoff time. But if you look at their roster and compare it with some of those other teams that are fighting for the 6, 7, 8, or even the 5, I still think the Heat have a great roster. I still think Spoelstra is a terrific coach. I think that after LeBron and Wade and Bosh and that group left, that's when Spoelstra started to earn his money. And I put Spoelstra ahead of guys like Stevens right now in terms of the coaching pantheon. How about you?
You know what? A year ago, if we'd been talking, I would have disagreed with you because I'm a big Brad Stevens guy. But you're 100% right. Look at what Miami did last year in that bubble, and that experience and that kind of juice behind you this year. Like you said, that experience, that's huge. So they have underachieved a little bit. It's almost like they've been somewhat waiting in the weeds to find their stride. And once they find it, confidence is not going to be a problem, especially with a guy like Jimmy Butler who holds everybody accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, the injury to Nerlens Noel last night, I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to last games, but Taj Gibson, again, has given them great minutes up front. They had to plug in the young man Pell last night. He played heavy minutes, and they still were able to beat Memphis on the road. It's been astounding.
Guys literally off the scrap heap.
Yeah.
They're bringing it, and they're buying in. I think someone on that staff, if it's not Thibodeau, whoever it might be, is just telling these guys, this is the way you're going to extend your career. This is the way you're going to get your next contract, whatever that's going to be. So, Nerlens Noel, coming out of college, was a huge name, but couldn't, find a ticket on anybody's bench. And this year, coming into that starting spot when they needed him, the guy's earned himself another contract for sure.
All right, so let's get away from the Knicks.
We're going to the Nets
for
now?
a few minutes.
All right.
We're going to skip over them completely.
Okay.
I'm going to go to a topic you really don't want to talk about.
Boy.
And that, of course, is the team that plays in Flushing. Okay, out in St. Louis last night. And listen, I have to be fair about this, Mike. I thought that beyond Jake DeGrom, who's obviously been fantastic, and Marcus Stroman, who you and I don't love, but we got to give him his credit. He's been great. The guys behind them, even Taiwan Walker has been terrific. The young man Peterson has been fine. Really, the only guy in the rotation, and he's not long for this rotation, is Lucchese of the famous Lucchese crime family. He stunk out the joint last night against the Cardinals. Right. And the ironic part is the Mets have not been hitting in so many of those games. They got hits last night. They scored 5 runs, but when it got to be 6-5, the game was stuck there for like 5 innings.
So difficult and frustrating. I mean, we're still waiting on Carlos Carrasco, who should be back hopefully soon, who should add a ton to the rotation.
And that's when Lucchese is out of the rotation.
Noah Syndergaard, hopefully sometime in June. They're not going to rush him back, but that makes sense.
Well, let me stop you with that for a second.
Okay.
When he comes back,
yes,
who goes? Is it Peterson or is it Taiwan Walker?
I think you got to leave Peterson as a left-hander. I mean, I would hate to see Walker go.
Yeah, he's been good.
Yeah, I don't know if you can go with all right-handed starters, but I don't know. You know what they'll probably wind up doing, Mike? I guarantee you this. They'll start Syndergaard, give him a rest, put Peterson in there. They'll find a way. And who knows by then if Carrasco is even back or what's going on. Little late-breaking news on this Tuesday. Unfortunately, Jacob deGrom, a late scratch from the start tonight.
Oh, I did not hear that.
Yes, coming into the studio tonight, he is scratched with right side tenderness.
Ooh, that's not good.
Not good.
And also, within the last day or so, the firing of Chili Davis as the hitting coach. And I'm listening to a show on the way here, and here's Pete Alonso. Now, Pete Alonso is your offensive star. Obviously, DeGrom is the star of the team, but in terms of everyday players, Pete Alonso is the guy. And Pete Alonso is standing there talking about how he heard this on Twitter. Your hitting coach is being fired, and you're hearing about it on Twitter, Mike. Come on now.
That's That's the old Mets, and that's what kills me. This new regime, or all right, not really new with Sandy also, but you have Steve Cohen, new owner. It's a new day. We signed Lindor, and we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I mean, come on now. Let's be professional. Was Chili Davis the sole person responsible for this? Of course not. But you didn't see a lot of guys standing up for him. They made up this guy out of nowhere.
What was that all about?
I don't
fake made up hitting coach.
Fake made up hitting coach. Now,
are these guys playing too many esports at home? What's going on?
I don't know. I mean, I'm all for being lighthearted, but yeah, you're bringing in this guy. It's not to take, if you want to take pressure off of Chili Davis, who apparently everybody loved, then do that. Not make up some dude that even the owner is tweeting about. I mean, I don't know. I think it was a matter of, and interesting, they finally score a bunch of runs, and then they fired Chili Davis.
Yeah,
I think they were kind of annoyed at him, though, I'll tell you this. They can say all they want. He opted out of the season last year.
Okay.
Now, was that part of it? And they say, okay, Chili, look, if we don't get, we're going to give you that, and they should have because, for health reasons. But if they get off to a rough start, I don't know. I just don't like that move. It seems panicky and seems really, low ball to fire a guy like you're saying, and the team finds out on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Gather the guys together. You don't have to make a big thing. It could be a 2-minute thing. And say, guys, I just want to let you know, before we play this game or after we've played this game, just gather around for a minute or two. I want to let you know that we had to let Chili go. I mean, you have guys finding out on Twitter. That's a bad job, Mike. And like you said, I don't want to beat up on the Mets. I don't want to make it sound like that. It annoys me when people say that stuff, same old Mets, same old Jets. I don't want to hear that stuff anymore. But, I mean, when you talk about a lack of communication and professionalism to let grown-up guys who are professional ball players know what's going on that affects their professional life and performance on the field, that's no good. So, I mean...
And it also, you know what, Mike? It shows a lack of respect on so many levels. The players need to be respected in terms of telling them that this guy's going in the right way. And also, if I'm saying to my players, hey, guys, look, we just fired your hitting coach because none of you are hitting up to what you should be, all right? You need now to perform for the next guy. It's kind of like, you know what, guys, all right, you didn't perform. You found out on Twitter. All right, yeah, he wasn't. It is such schmoozing the players, which, Trez, I can't stand.
It is. It's really. It's just gotten ridiculous. I mean, the way these guys are coddled now. I mean, I don't want to go off topic here, but you've got Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
I mean, I've heard guys who want to get the coach fired.
Yeah.
I don't like this coach. He's been too tough on me. He likes that guy more than he likes me. But a player wanting to get the general manager fired and giving ownership the ultimatum, saying it's the GM that goes or I go. I mean, where does it stop, Mike, in terms of kowtowing to professional athletes? It's just gotten ridiculous.
Some ownership group, and hopefully it's Green Bay, just digs in and says, no, you know what? Retire. You want to retire? Fine, we'll deal with it. Whatever else. You want it? You want to try to? You just signed Aaron Rodgers a 4-year contract extension, and your team is 26-5, and now you want the general manager fired. I mean, come on.
So let me just get back to the Mets for a second. Stay on topic.
Okay.
We won't be player specific. We've got our next show to dig into that. But broadly, what kind of job do you think Luis Rojas has done as a manager up till this point? Have you had any real issues with any decisions he's made?
He's been serviceable. Serviceable. The only thing I don't understand Jeff McNeil not hitting in the 2 spot. I mean, I get Lindor, and we're not going to get player specific. He's currently 0 for 21, which could that be even possible to bring in a guy and have that kind of slump? So the only thing we can say is he's going up. But in terms of lineup, that's the only thing. His in-game decisions, bullpen use, I'm fine with. I think he's done a pretty good job with that. Quite honestly, getting what he's gotten out of his starting and bullpen, you can't ask for anything more. The offense. Yeah, we're not going to pin that on him at the moment, but I don't have a problem with him. I'm pleasantly surprised with how he started.
Okay, all right. So Now we have to switch gears and get to a conversation I really don't want to have. And that is my lousy, stinking New York Yankees.
Well, it's gotten better.
It's gotten better, but I'll tell you, Mike, it's a good thing you and I didn't do this show a week or two ago, because I would have been using words that
I would have had to put a seatbelt on you to keep you in that chair.
Probably a helmet, too, to keep me from banging my head.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, they were so awful to start this season. 2 weeks ago, I was so frustrated. I mean, I'm surprised my television didn't fly out the window. Offense off to a really, really slow start. Thank goodness for Garrett Cole, who, while he hasn't been DeGrom, he's really been the next best thing to DeGrom.
Sure.
Herman was terrible to start the season. They sent him to the alternate site. He's been much better since he's been back. Kluber and Tyone were giving them really, really short outings, but that wasn't even the problem.
No.
The problem was that the offense was horrible. There was the base running was a joke. And the defense was absolutely something you cannot live with.
No, I pick one of those things to struggle with, your team's going to have a tough time. Yeah, but when you're hitting, fielding, base running, I mean, as a Yankee fan or any baseball fan, that's got to drive you nuts, because that's just mental. That's blunders.
Absolutely. And they talk about guys trying to do too much. I don't know if you saw the ending of that game. It was probably about a week ago. It was the one where Judge got thrown out at third to end the eighth inning.
Yes.
And the umpires don't let Boone challenge, because, we have to speed up the game. So you took 22 seconds instead of the 20 seconds you're allowed. But forget about all that for a second. Forget about the fact that Boone should have challenged right away, which he should have. And forget about the fact that the ump, kind of screwed the Yanks around by not letting them challenge. It was the fact that Judge even went to third in the first place. If I were coaching a team of 12-year-olds, Mike, and the guy made the third out at third base, I probably would take him aside and give him a talking to.
These are things you and I'm sure, talked about with our coaches, with our dads as we watch baseball. And there's this old school. These are the old school things that always come back to bite teams. So while they talk, we work on this in spring training. Yeah. How long do you work on it? It's the minor leagues where this stuff has to really, really be taught. And it just seems like these guys, the superstars, they miss those levels, and they're learning on the job basic baseball fundamentals and just situations.
It drives you crazy. It drives you crazy. I mean, if the guy was a rookie and he's making a rookie mistake, you send one of the coaches over there or the manager to talk to him. But what's funny, Mike, bigger picture is this, is that in the Yankees division, there was supposed to be two good teams besides the Yankees, Tampa and Toronto, and the bigger problem is the Yankees can't beat either one of them, no matter where the games are played. And then you throw in the fact that Camden Yards was supposed to be automatic wins for the Yankees. They split 4 games down there.
The Dark Knight comes back.
They haven't even played the Red Sox yet, who were the surprise come-out-of-nowhere team in this division.
All right, so as a Yankee fan, though, let's bring you down a little bit.
You can tell I'm getting.
I know you're getting worked up.
Here.
So I want to bring it back to some better things. So yes, they're playing better. Giancarlo Stanton, he's crushing the ball. Now we both know, you and I, he is like the biggest up and down guy you're ever going to get. But who off the start, is there anybody from a Yankee offensive perspective who you've been happy with?
I mean, LeMahieu he's starting to inch back up towards that 300. The guy who was carrying the team, the two guys that were actually carrying the team were Gio Urshela, who, if you notice, was in the cleanup spot for a week or so. And let me not hurt myself, patting myself on the back here. If you notice, my main whipping boy, Gary Sanchez, is now the backup catcher in favor of, wait for it, Kyle Higashioka.
Who everybody loves because, hey, why not?
Because the guy's a great defensive catcher. I won't say great. The guy's a really good defensive catcher, and he comes up with big hits all the time, Mike. Other than that, what else do you really need to do to keep the job?
And that's maybe going back to the Mets with Rojas. You have Boone. more seasoned manager, the guy will tinker with the lineup. He's moving it around. He's hitting guys. He'll bring in the backup. Rojas, of course, they're telling him, and I don't want to make it about the Mets. You got to keep your lineup somewhat still, but I love that. If George Steinbrenner, bless him, had been around, how many games would Boone have lasted in this season?
Oh, I mean,
8, 10?
Especially after that Friday night early on where he was going to have this big meeting and he was going to dress the Yankees down and he was going to give them a severe dressing down. And then they went out and lost the next 2 after that. I was like, hey, great speech, Skip. But you know what? The baseball season is long, Mike. We're going to be back in just 2 weeks. We'll have so much to dig into.
Oh, it's going to be great.
About the Yankees and the Mets. It's going to be a great summer. Just want to ask you before we wrap up baseball, are you ready to revise down either one of those predictions? You had the Mets at 96 wins. You had the Yankees at 95. I'm going to come back and beat on you with those predictions all season long. You ready to revise down?
All right. They're horrible, horrible predictions 20-something games in. I get it. But I feel the wind is shifting for both offenses. Met pitching is going to continue to be strong. Yankee pitching, that's, to me, Kluber, unbelievable last start. Tyon, what are you going to do with that? We'll see, but I'm not going to bail just yet.
All right. So that's going to do it for us, folks, from here at Spot on Sports. Before we go, we want to thank a few people. We're here at our new home, Broadcast Centers of New York. The people here have been great to us. Terrific job. We want to thank John Santamaria for hopping on the video with us. Our engineer tonight was Leo Pisak, who did a tremendous job. Thank you, Leo. Our producer is Burn Baby Burn, Bernardino Rosario. Our theme music is by Scott Daly. Our voiceover artist is Hannah Kussman. And for everybody here at Spot on Sports, including my partner, Mike Guidone, this is Mike Trezza saying goodbye. And remember the words of the late, great Jim Valvano, no matter what your goal is in life, never, ever give up. We'll see you next time.
Now it's time for Spot on Sports. Here's your host, Mike Trezza.